In this video with the Anki, I'm going to show you how to update to 2.1.45. There are so many features and changes in this. It is really cool, and there's a V3 scheduler that I will go over. The first thing I want to say in this video is thank you. We have had a ton of anonymous donors and people from the community that have donated small amounts of money, but it was enough that we have been able to fund add-on projects for quite a while now and help update things like the advanced browser add-on, more overview stats, progress bar, the Anki simulator, browser resizer, tons of add-ons, and we've got a couple new add-ons we funded. I'm going to show you those right now. Okay, these two add-ons that I'm going to show you, there's one that's a ReColor add-on and then another one that's a new cards counter. And both of these are now on our Anki memberships, which is also our Patreon. They're the same thing. You can see that beta testing of add-ons is on here. There's also, if you want to support us a little bit more, like I said, we are using these funds to update other add-ons publicly and everything. And so anyway, that's what these are. The first one is the ReColor add-on. I'll show you this. It is really cool. Basically, you can change any of the colors you want in Anki. So if I change my settings, I can change the sidebar so that, flag 1 is actually black. And you can change whatever you want on everything. I just changed the background here, but you can change as much as you want. And as soon as you click save, it updates. Obviously, I picked something very bright here. And then if I go to my flags, you'll see that changed. So anyway, you can do all sorts of crazy things and probably make it look a lot better than I'm making it look here. And then the other add-on, I'll restore defaults here, is the new cards counter. So you can see I've got total new cards learned today and learned this week. And if I go and do a new card here, I just put an example one in, go back to the decks, you'll see now it counts that there's one. It works really well now on 2.1.45, and we're using all of the funds that we have on this Patreon, or we're trying to better the community in other ways. So that's those two add-ons that now work really well on this latest update. All right, I'm going to count down here with all the different changes. Number 5 being the miscellaneous updates that were made. And the first thing, obviously, there were a lot of bug fixes that were made, which is great. We're adding stability for future versions and for add-ons. Unfortunately, it did break some add-ons, and that just happens. But if you go to, I've got our website or our video here on how to update to 2.1.41. I talk about this a little bit, and then I've also got this add-ons breaks Notion page. I'm going to put a link to this in the description, where I'm actually I've been keeping track of all the add-ons that are broken, what's wrong, what's kind of working, and all sorts of things. And you can actually comment on this and help me out. So hopefully this becomes a little better for the community in general. And I forgot to mention a little earlier, but you can also go and read through all the changes. There's a ton. You can also read through the changes on the V3 scheduler, and I'm going to go over the major points though right now. Beyond the bug fixes and stuff, one cool thing is if we go up to Tools Add-ons and check for updates, I think this is really cool. It now will let you choose which add-ons you want to update and which ones you don't. So you can uncheck or check whichever ones you want and click OK, and it will update those add-ons, which is great. And Advanced Browser is one of those add-ons that has gotten updated lately. So if you are updating, you are going to want to go to this add-on screen after you have updated to 2.1.45 and then click check for updates, because some of the add-ons will only update on this version, and there's actually quite a few add-ons that were updated. For add-ons that otherwise what you want to do is check this sheet. You'll see a little more, and this might actually be helpful to you. For example, things like customized sidebar are no longer needed, frozen fields is no longer needed. Those may actually break things when you update. So I would check this sheet to see which ones are no longer needed and what may potentially be broken, so that you can toggle those off and have a pretty seamless experience. But like I said, download this first. You're going to get errors the first time you run. Go to Tools Add-ons, check for updates, then restart. Then things should be a little smoother. Now another thing that was added, and this is a huge deal, I'm really happy about this, is multiple undo steps. I had previously done this new card. I can actually undo that even though I haven't done anything, and then I can actually go to redo change deck, or I can go in here, I can move a card around, change the deck to, move it to a different deck. I can undo that. I can come back, I can redo that, and you can actually have multiple things. So you could go change a note type, then change a deck, then review a card, and you can actually undo all of those. This is a really big deal. If you're using add-ons that affect this, the scheduler or the collection data, then it may actually mess that up and you may not be able to undo to a certain point. But regardless, this is a really, really big update. Now, another really cool thing that we have going is the, let's see, I'm going to go to the text in here. And so I'm reminding myself right here where it has this. If you are using the text to speech, this part will actually, well, we've got the hint on there, but if I didn't have a hint, it would read it as blank, which is kind of nice because previously it would just read folliculitis presents with scarring alopecia, which doesn't really make sense. You're like, wait, what? So folliculitis blank presents with scarring alopecia. Kind of a nice update there. So I'm really happy about that one. And then the last kind of random miscellaneous update before I get into the what's specific to the editor or the browser, I went up to Anki preferences, and in the preferences here, there's this new default search text, and you can put whatever you want that will be the default search text in the browser. So for example, if I type is due, and we'll close that, and I go to the browser, you'll notice that it pulls up is due. And you can tweak that as you want. I probably would use that specifically for things that are flagged if you're using those a lot, or for a specific deck that you're primarily using. Anyway, kind of cool update there. Number 4 is changes to the options group and the view. So I'm actually going to go in here and you'll see this looks quite a bit different than it used to. So if you click on the gear icon and options, you'll notice this looks very different. Now if I keep it skinny, oops, we resize it here, then it's all one long thing. And if I open it up wide, then it's through. And you'll notice that there's no tabs like there used to be. It's all in one screen, and there's a couple of reasons for that. But part of my understanding is that now there's a description here on each of these, which I think is super nice because the settings are kind of confusing for a lot of us. So now there are explanations on pretty much all of them. There's also the settings that we don't necessarily tweak that much are all down in this advanced area, and everything that we do use is up in the area where we would use it, which I think is really, really nice. Now, there's also not a deck description like there used to be. And I'll show you where that is real quick. If I click on a deck, the description button's actually down here now, and you can see that. And it does have this 2.1.41 handling, which is actually, I believe, Markdown mode. You can see that. It doesn't actually support HTML anymore like I have here. And the only reason this is still supported as the deck description is because I have the More Overview Stats add-on installed. If you didn't, this would basically not show up. So just kind of a heads up there for the deck description. But back to the options group, a lot of things have changed in here. Like I said, there's descriptions here, and when you change something, if I change it and then I close this window, this is really important because I've made this mistake a lot, notice that it's still back to where it was. So you have to change it and then click the save button up here. Very important. Nothing will apply until you hit the save button. The button up here, you still have the save to all subdecks and a couple other things managing these presets. You can still choose through your presets and stuff like that. The other big change I've noticed on here is the display order, and this is something that people have been asking for years, as long as I've been using Anki. The new card gather priority. Basically, like when you take a new card, do you want it to start with the first deck and then go down, or do you want it to randomly sort through all of them? And that's what this is here, the ascending position and stuff. And some of these were actually previously in the preferences option. They're all now here by deck settings, so like whether the new cards come first or afterwards, and you can go through and read all of these, but basically it's how you sort all of your cards, and this is a really, really big change. I'm really happy that it was made. And the only other really big difference is this custom scheduling box here. There's very specific details listed on the changes thing here that actually like lists, or sorry, it's on the scheduler form. There's very specific details here if you want to get into that. Otherwise, honestly, I would not recommend messing with that unless you know what you're doing. And that's really it for the options groups. There is a little thing here. If you open here and hold shift and then click options, it will open up the old options like you're familiar with. Which I think is kind of nice, especially if you're using add-ons like the Speed Focus add-on or this Exam Notifier add-on I have that's hopefully coming out really soon in a couple weeks. But that kind of stuff you have to access from the old menu. So again, you go here, you hold shift, and then click options, and it'll do that. So that's it for the options updates. Number 3 is changes to the editor. Now the editor can be viewed from the ad screen. This is the editor. It can also be viewed from the browser screen. If you click on a card, this is the editor here. So these changes apply to those two areas. Now, when you're adding a card, you'll notice that this looks a little bit different. There's also a couple new features up here, like the bulleting and then the numbers here. You can also center or you can indent things, which is super handy. I really think that it's going to be very useful, and a lot of people are going to be very happy about it. Now, kind of hidden over in the corner here is the pin. That is the Frozen Fields, essentially. The Frozen Fields add-on was officially imported into Anki. It's now part of Anki, which is so cool. So you click on this, and it will stay frozen, meaning if I add a card, this field will stay, whereas any text that were in the other fields will go away. So if you watch my video on the Frozen Fields, or you've used the Frozen Fields add-on before, it basically functions exactly the same. And lastly, I think this is so cool. If you do Command or Control Shift X to get to the HTML of a field, I'm going to do that right now. Oops, I did C instead of X, sorry. Command Shift X, there we go. It's going to pull up the HTML editor. You'll notice this is not a separate window like it used to be, and it actually still has the syntax, which is so cool. So if I do this is a highlight, and we can do this, and I'm going to highlight it yellow. There you go. And then I do Command or Control Shift X. Now you can see that it's actually put in the highlight there. It is super clean. I really like it. You can also highlight over it and just erase any syntax that you have. Really good editor updates that are very useful. Number 2 is changes to the browser, and these are probably some of my favorite changes for this update, honestly. I think they make such a big difference. So for example, if I click on a deck that I have, one of the coolest things, I've been begging for this, it actually was a feature, but it's kind of hidden behind, you just could only do it with a keyboard shortcut. You can switch between cards and notes now. So notice if I'm on cards, there's 43,000 cards, whereas if I'm here, there's 34,000 notes. Such a big deal. It makes it so easy to sort through things. Notice all my flags and stuff go away when I'm in the notes view, and that's because the cards view is where you can flag things. And on that note, look how many flags there are. There are a lot more flags, which is super cool. And this is something you wouldn't catch right off the bat, but if I click on the red flag, I can right click and then rename it to whatever I want. That is super cool. That is really handy. So lots of extra flags here. I haven't personally started using them yet because they're so new, but it is really handy. And then this up here is the saved searches, which is really nice. I can actually just drag the red flag, or sorry, the tags I can do with, not the flags. I can drag, like here's them marked now, and marked is no longer up here like it was with customized sidebar. I can click the marked tag and drag it up to the saved searches. But I'm having a problem here doing that. And the reason is with these two things. And this is going to confuse a lot of people, so I'm going to go to a lot of detail with it. This is the search function, meaning if I click on something, it's going to search it. If I click on something and then command click something else, it's going to search, with an and, or if I shift click on something, it searches with an or, kind of what we were used to. This here is for adjusting the sidebar. Now that may be clicking here and moving the tag up into that tag. That may be that I want to take the marked tag here, and if I drag it up into saved searches, now it becomes a saved search. And I believe that I actually can do that with the tags as well. Yep. So you can do that with whatever you want, and you can delete these whenever you want as well. And then if you have a search here where you're like, I have this, and I want to find all things that are with the flag red. Oops. Gotta go back to my search button. So I click there, and then I command click red. It's gonna be all in that deck that are flag red. Now I gotta click this one, save searches, and I right click on it, and then I can save current search. And I can make this into a saved search. So there isn't a filter button up here like there was before. Everything's kind of been moved down to here. So remember, if you want to move things around, you got to do this. Now the nice thing, the reason we did this is because if I go here and I do a deck and then I shift click a tag, then it's going to add the or modifier here. But if I want to do this, then I can click a tag and shift click, and it will select all of those, and then I can move all of those under something else. So hopefully that makes sense, and I can undo that as well with the new fancy undo features. So that's what the two things on the sidebar is. If you're having problems, you can switch to that. You can also right click on something and rename with parents to pop the entire thing up. So if we go into a deep one here, rename with parents, now you can see it pulls up the actual tag there. So that is the main changes in the browser. Oh, I forgot one thing actually. I'm going to go back because this is so cool. If we go to today and then we do first review, then it brings in this introduced one, which will show you how many cards, new cards, you did today. Now if I did introduced 7, you would see all new cards I've done in the last 7 days, and so on and so forth. So you can come up with some really cool combinations with that. All right, and that is it for the browser. All right, the last thing I'm going to go over is the changes that were made with the V3 scheduler. And I actually haven't mentioned this earlier in the video. This isn't the V3 scheduler, but right here, there's now a new column for the learning cards, which I think is kind of handy. That is not an add-on. That is part of Anki. So anyway, the V3 scheduler, if we go up to the Anki preferences under scheduling, you'll see that this is the scheduler here, and you can enable it there. The nice thing is you can actually go back and forth between V3 and V2 without any issue. You can have V2 on your Anki iOS app, you can have V3 on the desktop app, and it shouldn't cause any issue. The thing you do want to know about this is that with the V3 scheduler, sometimes these numbers of what is due may differ. Just know that they may differ, and that is okay. And I'll kind of go over a few things in a minute as to like why they do. Now, one thing the V3 scheduler adds is something we've actually already talked about. If I go into the options groups here, you'll probably remember me talking about the display order and being able to randomly grab cards from the decks, so I could just grab from this as opposed to the sub decks. Now, if I go into the V3 scheduler and turn that off, so some of you may be noticing it's not in the options, and I go in here, you'll notice that is not here anymore. So, and a couple other options are not here as well. So the V3 scheduler did add most of those. Now I know it is technically still a beta. I have not had any issues with it yet. But if you do have issues, just report them. There's constantly ongoing updates with Anki. Now another thing that this did that I think is really cool is it changed the limits on the deck. So if we go into the options group here, and you can see that there's the maximum number of reviews per day, or how many new cards you want to get a day and things like that. If we go into here, this reviews per day, actually before I get out of here, it now applies to new cards and reviews with the V3 scheduler. And then if you set a maximum of 100 here and 20 here and 200 here, then you would be based off of which deck you clicked on. So if I clicked on this Chinese deck, I would have 100 cards maximum. If I clicked on this deck, it would be 20 cards maximum. And if I clicked on this deck, it would be 200 cards. So the deck you click on, as opposed to just the parent deck, now determines how many cards you can have maximum. So that's a change from the way Anki previously worked. And let's see, the other thing, just a quick mention because I forgot about this. These options that are in here, these previously were in the preferences screen. They're no longer there anymore because of the V3 scheduler. So if you're looking for them up there, you're going to be lost. The other thing here, so this new count here, or even the review, if you have the setting in your options groups here for burying related cards, the siblings that are newer reviews, in the old scheduler, it would be if you had 12 cards, but they were all siblings. So you actually only had 6 notes, you had 12 cards. This here would show 12. And then as you did a card, if you did one card and it buried the sibling, then you would do one card and it would jump down to 10. You'd be like, wait, I only did one card. Why did it go from 12 to 10? And it's because it buried. The V3 scheduler actually factors that in ahead of time. And so it already gets rid of everything that's going to be buried and only shows you how many cards you are truly going to be doing, which is a nice change. But that is one of the reasons if you're flipping back and forth between the two, you might get different numbers, just as a heads up. Another thing is when you go into the deck here and you see these numbers of how many days out this is. It used to be that if it was 10 days out, Anki would apply some fuzz. So it may actually be 9 days, it may actually be 11 days. You didn't actually know because it would do it randomly after you pushed the button. The V3 scheduler actually does that and makes it visual. So if you're on the V3 schedule and this says 10 days, it's actually 10 days. It is going to schedule 10 days, and that's already factored the fuzz in. It's a small change, but it is something that a lot of people have been confused about, so I think it is really nice. And I think that is about it for the V3 scheduler. That's all really the new features. There are some other really minor things I didn't super mention, like in the browser, the find and replace now, over here now can actually work with tags, and there's a couple other bug fixes and new APIs for add-ons to connect in, but I've showed you the majority of the new features for this. I think it's awesome. Like I said, we are funding add-on authors to help update add-ons so that they work with 2.1.45 and everybody can get on this because we think it is such a great version. So yeah, if you want to support, please send donations. If you have add-ons that need to be updated, let us know, and we will do our best to help out, help the community. Thanks for learning with the Anki. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel here, as well as follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Patreon. That is at AnkiMed. Also, feel free to reach out via email or check out our website, ankingmed.com, for more tips and tricks.